Aloha, this is Yvette and welcome to yet another brand new episode of my project analysis series. Today we'll be touching on Narra Residences. For this area, we are in dairy farm. There's a lot of questions on the ground whether the supply is too high in the area, will it affect the price point, can we still make money in this area? Today I'll dive a bit more on that. But first, to just show you how the project looks like. It will have 3 stacks that you see, then it will be on staggering floor levels. Then I think it's quite nice, it's very close to the nature as well. Today I'll be covering on the project information, the perceived problem that I mentioned earlier, before I dive into the layout analysis over here. Project info, I think nothing much to shout about. A total of 540 units. It is to be completed on paper 2030, but I would say probably estimated around 2029 or so. So later on I'll touch on the unit mix and all that, but just to give you a brief of where we're at, along Dairy Farm Road, right? Over here, when you do drive past, in the west side, when you do drive past along the 𝐒𝐿𝐴𝐻𝐻𝐼 Expressway, you definitely see 3 very iconic high-rise developments. You have Eco Century, Tree House, Forest Q. This was completed in the 2014-2016 range. Not too old, not too new either. I think just about 10 years old, which is quite a good comparison if you're looking to study the stats and the data for here. But I would say where Narra is at is over here, a bit more tucked into the area. So unless you are specifically looking for condos in this area, I think that's when you'll know about the few projects here lah. But if you don't drive in, you're not specifically looking at here, I do think it's a bit of a hidden under the rock kind of thing. But that being said, Narra Residences, we are opposite Dairy Farm Residences, which is a mixed development. You have shopping mall, your supermarket, your childcare center there as well. Then before you have Botany at Dairy Farm, there is also a recent new launch to be completed sometime next year. It is already fully sold. Then you have Skywoods, a slightly older resale. Here you see there are quite a few empty plots that are also zone residential. Government is quite smart whereby they first built a mixed development Dairy Farm Residences and mall first, such that they have the residents in the vicinity, their amenities, their groceries, everything settled before they actually release the other plots, namely Botany, now Narra, and also another one that is open for tender. I think this area, it is definitely up and coming, but then the question is the price point that you are entering and what is the potential of this area. But I would say comparing to the resale, right? When I take Narra, comparing to the resale in this area, I think one thing that people don't know is that they think like, oh, new launches, units are getting smaller and smaller. Bedroom size so small. What they don't know is that these 3 projects, right? What if I tell you that the common bedrooms, right, can only fit a single size bed? Because the sizes are only just about 6 to 7 square meters, which is really quite small. Whereas now at Narra, or even actually the first to implement with the new URA guidelines changes, right? First one was actually Dairy Farm, where we start seeing proper 9 square meters common bedrooms in this area. Then of course followed by Botany and now Narra. I would say layout is definitely one comparison that you have to make. But besides that, right, secondly is also the price point that you are entering at. Currently, because Narra, right, Narra Residences, it is harmonized. When I say harmonized, meaning to say aircon latch is no longer counted in the floor area. When we take the same quantum and we divide by a smaller size, can I say that per square foot is higher? You may think like, per square foot is higher and all that, but when you don't do the proper calculations, you just think like, PSF is high, it's too expensive, you don't buy. But we do have to take the resale, we take that floor area, we minus the aircon latch, we do some proper calculations, and then we compare the per square foot. That is when we can do a proper comparison in terms of price point analysis before we decide whether this is worth entering into or not. But of course, layouts is one, price point is another one. But I would say these 2 factors alone, right, it's not a very clear telltale sign as to whether is it worth entering into. There are a lot more other factors to look into. Whether you're looking at Narra Residence or whether you're looking at other locations, right, it is very important to study all this. So if you need a more detailed consultation, because I cannot cover everything here, you can scan the WhatsApp QR code and then we can have a detailed consultation from there. But that being said, this is just to run you through what's happening in the area. Then also at the same time, back to Narra, right, this land was actually bidded by 2 developers. Namely, firstly is of course the one that won the bid, Apex. Then secondly, Sim Lim also did bid for the land. Then the question is whether did the developer overpay for the land. But I would say because there's only 2 bids, it's a bit hard to tell whether did they overpay, were the developer's interest at the same level. It's a bit hard to tell. Usually how I see is when there are 3 or more developers who bid for the land, and then I compare the first 2, and then I see whether the gap is negligible, is it reasonable or not. But if you ask me, did the developer buy too expensive, I wouldn't say it's expensive either. I think it's still okay, but it ultimately depends on how much they launch the land at eventually, because developers are also still businessmen lah. However much they buy the land price at, after factoring in the construction, the financing costs, the marketing costs, etc., right, then there's where we come up with a break-even price of estimated 1844 per square foot. Then there depends on the developer. Some could mark up a 10, 15, 20% profit margin before selling to the public. But of course, some of them could push the premium out on the launch day itself, hoping to sell out quickly. There are also some who, depending on the sell out rate, right, they do price it in stages as well. That one is another topic altogether on pricing strategy. But I would say for this, right, developers usually would want to sell their projects out as fast as possible, because the moment they sell out on one, that is when they can replenish their land bank, they can work on more projects and then earn more money. Definitely developers will want to sell out as quick as possible. From what we hear say, that for Narra Residences there could be a chance whereby the 2 bedrooms will be priced very, very attractive. And whereas the more on the 4 and the 5 is where the developers may place a premium. If you ask me, is the price point safe? I think it's really quite safe. Depending on your queue number, depending on your objectives and your time horizon, right, then we have to plan a proper one for you. Then there is also another land that is open for tender over here, but do take note that the land is a bit bigger at 29,000 square meters, whereas Narra is just 21,000. Plot ratio is a bit smaller, which means it's a bit lesser dense. So while the land is a bit bigger, it can yield lesser units. So a bit more spread out in a sense, whereas Narra's plot ratio is at 2.1. But anyway, all these are just for your info. Then back to Narra. This is the site plan that we have. We have, of course, 3 stacks that are staggering floor levels. The one below is, of course, facing Dairy Farm Residences. Then this one is currently zoned educational. Then here you have empty residential. On top, you also have a residential plot as well. You may ask me, where's the best view? Probably the ones inner facing, or perhaps facing Dairy Farm Residences wouldn't be a bad idea. But I would say if you are facing on top, then you may potentially face upcoming construction in the coming years. But as to when that will be, we really wouldn't know because the land hasn't been open for tender yet lah. Then also the distribution chart. Here you see that some stacks are taller, some stacks are shorter from here. Unit mix, right? There is a very significant share of the 2 bedrooms. Here you can see that actually the 1 and the 2 bedrooms stand almost half of the development, which is really quite sizable. Which I would say, right, for the developer, in order for them to move the units fast, can I say that they will have to move, especially the 2 bedrooms, quite faster look off, right? That is when we hear say that the 2 bedrooms, there could be a chance that this will be priced significantly cheaper, so that they can move a bit faster. And given that I mentioned that this area is a lot of own stay, family oriented area, then perhaps what they may do is that the 4 and 5 bedrooms is when they stack the premium. So 2 bedrooms sell cheaper, 4 and 5 sell a bit more expensive. Then you see average out, right? That's their profit margin. They still earn either way. But it's just a matter of how fast and how they want to market and how they want to price for the units to move according to a certain speed lah. Then here is the perceived problem in the dairy farm area. On the ground, we hear a lot of questions like, oh, it's difficult to make money. And also at the same time, in the resale market, especially when we're looking at dairy farm residences, the most recent TOP project that has hit the resale market in the area, that is difficult to sell, there is oversupply. But over here, right, when you search on Property Guru, you realize, for example, dairy farm residences currently have 90 listings for sale. When you see 90 units, wow, competition, is it very high? Then is there enough demand? Is there enough people looking for this area or not? Then you really have to dive deeper into out of that 90 units, right? How many of them are 2 bedrooms? How many of them are 3 bedrooms? And what I realized, right, for the 2 bedrooms alone, right, there is about 50 plus listings for sale. Then when you start searching for the 3-bedroom, you start searching for a 4-bedroom, right? You see the supply of listings available in the market is significantly lesser and lesser. What this means is that I would say, if you really want to buy into this area, definitely if you can, go for a 3 and a 4-bedroom just because the supply is so limited in this area. Because the majority of people who buy into this, a lot of them can say that they are buying for own stay. Which means when it TOP, when it hits the seller stamp duty period, right, most of the time they will just take and move in, right? But whereas for a 2-bedroom, those who buy for investments, that is when you see a lot of resale listings in the area. If you want to earn a bit more profits, and when you look at the profit margin, especially for dairy farm residents, you will also notice that the 3 and the 4-bedrooms, the bigger unit types do earn a bit more. Not saying cannot sell, but you really have to buy the right type. Not just the right type, you do also have to buy it at the right price point. Because it boils down to the basic economics over here. If the demand is high and the supply is low, can I say that the price will go up? But however, if let's say the demand is not quite there, but yet at the same time, right, you have this amount of listings for sale in the market, the supply is very high, then what will happen to the price point then? Then it's also very important to know who are your future buyer profile. And when we look at the area, because there's so many condos, right, no HDB, then it's also important to understand in the west side of Singapore, how many HDB also hit its MOP which I've done the statistics from 2023 to 2025. Actually, the HDB that hit its MOP is not very high, about 8,700 units. Whereas the condo that has either hit its TOP or like the ECs that has reached its MOP and hit the resale market, right, is at 3,003. When you put in the ratio, right, it's about 2.5 to 1, which means that out of that 2 to 3 HDB upgraders, you want one of them to move to a condo, I think quite hard. Usually the percentage would be about 10 to 20%. That is why you see some of the condos in this area in the past 1-2 years hasn't moved as fast. But whereas when we take into the coming years, right, we realize that the HDB upgraders, the supply is a lot more. HDB to be MOP in the west side will be 18,400, whereas the units that TOP that are coming up is only 2,003. Which means that you just need 1 out of 8 HDB owners to come in to buy your condo. Which I feel this percentage is definitely a lot more palatable, a lot more possible compared to 1 out of 2.5. So this is also something to take into consideration. If let's say they come from a 3-room flat, right, most of the times the HDB upgraders, especially if they bought as a BTO, a lot of them will be able to buy a 2-bedder, a 3-bedder comfortably, which is what we have over here. Then whether they are coming from a 4 or 5-room HDB, they can also go for a 3 and 4-bedroom here as well. I would say in terms of size, in terms of budget, then these people would definitely be more able to afford here. Then now we move on to the layout analysis. For Narra Residences, the 1-bedroom plus study is not a lot, so I won't really touch on that. Open concept kitchen, you have a study tucked away at the side. It is 517 square feet. It's just 3 ground floor units over here. Then we move on to the 2-bedroom compact at 560 square feet. What I like about this is it is a dumbbell layout. You see both bedrooms can comfortably fit a queen size bed, which is what we're looking for over here. But however, it is still an open concept kitchen given that it is a compact. It's basically a 2-bed, 1 bath. Whereas when we go to a 2-bedroom premium, this is when I think it's a bit more enticing. Because when I compare the layouts in this area, right, for example, dairy farm residences, the 2-bed, 2 bath, they are generally open concept kitchen. Meaning to say you open your door along the corridor, that's the kitchen really. Whereas this one is still tucked and you can place a proper dining set over here, which I feel, given the price point that the developer just announced, right, I think this is definitely something worth looking into. Especially if you can get this at about 1.2, 1.3 million, that price point is definitely very attractive because when you look at the entire new launch market, you pretty much cannot find anything at that price point. If that's something that you are considering, I think this one you can definitely look into it because I would say the rentability in this area is also quite decent. Then we move on to the 2-bedroom plus home shelter at 689 square feet. I would say I quite like this layout because given that it's 689 square feet, right, the fact that they can put a 2-bedroom with a 2-bath and a home shelter, I think it's really very decent. Because in this market, in this area, I don't think you can find something of this size. And given the size is smaller, usually I would say hopefully the price point is also a bit more palatable. I would say 689 square feet is definitely most preferred. Given these two, right, Both also 689. Then the question is, where's the difference, right? I got it for you. So for B3H, right, you'll notice that the DB box is over here, whereas the other one is over here. So thereby, right, B3H, you do have a slightly longer living and dining, and also you have a bit more storage tucked at the side lah. Whereas for the other one, it's just over here. So that's just something to note. But anyway, not too many units of this type. So definitely it depends on your queue number and also at the price point that the developers launch in at. Then you decide which unit to eventually go for. Then, of course, we have this one as well, 700 square feet, 2-bedroom with bomb shelter. But however, this one, because it is a corner unit, what you'll notice is that the kitchen can be fully enclosed. It comes with windows. Your bathrooms also comes with windows as well. And yet, you have a bomb shelter, which is perfect because when you take a 3-room HDB in comparison, usually about 700 plus square feet, right? Then this size would be something very manageable, very livable for them as well, because this size, they're already so used to it, right? 2 bedrooms, it will definitely suit a young couple, actually even single, or even a young family with 1 kid. This would definitely be a very good size as well. Then when I look at this area, right, 700 square feet, this one really ticks a lot of the boxes in terms of family stay as well. The difference between these two layouts, right, again, is very, very slight difference. So you see this one, right, the kitchen is a bit pushed further in compared to this one. Then also at the same time, this TB, what they call like tall boy. Anyway, I flipped the floor plan so that we can better see the comparison. Then also at the same time, this one, the living and dining is just slightly longer. Not too much of a difference because I think both layouts are still very livable. So if you ask me for my top pick for 2-bedroom plus bomb shelter, right, it will definitely be this layout. Then we have this one, 2-bedroom with bomb shelter and a study at 721 square feet. This one, however, right, is not a corner unit. So do take note, while you have a bomb shelter, where you have a study, right, your kitchen and your bathrooms don't have window. So if you ask me what's my top pick, right, it would definitely be the 2-bedroom plus bomb shelter over there at 700 square feet, because it's a corner unit. You have windows in your kitchen and your bath, as well as I think the size is definitely very livable for young families as well. Then when we compare to the nearby area, right, such as the Dairy Farm Residences, they do have 2-bed, 2-bath at 710 and also 721 square feet. What you notice is that their kitchen is really the open door, is along your corridor, that kind of kitchen. You don't have any storage area over here. Whereas Narra, right, will definitely beat hands down in terms of layout, in terms of livability, because when you are buying a 2-bedroom, whether it's for investment, for own stay, it's very important to know who will be your competitors when you do want to sell in the future. All this determines your exit strategy. When you do want to sell, who's your future buyer profile and who are your competition in that area as well. Also, at the same time, for botting at Dairy Farm that is to be completed next year, you also notice that it is not a corner unit. You don't have windows in your kitchen, in your bathroom as well. So definitely Narra 700 square feet, 2 plus bomb shelter will stand an advantage in the market. Then we move on to the 3-bedroom compact and flexi at 818 square feet and 872. I would say for 818 square feet compact, this one ticks a lot of boxes because you have your windows in your kitchen, in your bath, but also at the same time, you'll notice that your 3rd bedroom doesn't sacrifice on view. If you look at the floor plan, right, the 3rd bedroom has quite an unblocked facing. It's not inner facing, it's not facing another person's bedroom or like service yard, which they usually do if they face over here. So I would say 818 square feet compared to the other new launches such as like Zion Grand 818 square feet, right? If you look at the floor plan, this one definitely differs a lot lah. Then we have 872 square feet that comes with a flexi, which does offer a lot of flexibility for this one because it can double up as a storeroom. It can double up also as a helper's room as well for the 872 square feet. So my top choice would possibly be the 3-bedroom plus flexi, but like what I always say, it really depends on the unit availability as well as the price point at your time of entry. Because at that point of time, if you tell me this difference of about 60-70 square feet, you times 2,000 per square foot, for example, if let's say the price difference is like 200-300k more for the flexi, then that is when maybe I will consider the compact instead. But whereas if let's say it's about 100-200k jump, then perhaps might as well just top up a bit for the flexi for a better resale value in the future. So it really depends on the price point and the unit availability at that point of time. But of course, for functionality, practicality, it will definitely be the 3-bedroom flexi that is more preferred. Then we move on to comparing in the resale market again. Dairy Farm Residences smallest 3-bedroom at 915 square feet. You notice you walk in, you are facing the dining, the kitchen is over here, right? But kitchen got window over here. A very, very small one in this corner. So you still can cook, like do your heavy cooking, but definitely not as functional as what we have over here for Narra Residences. Then also your corridor do eat up quite a bit of space over here. But functionality wise, in terms of living, in terms of bedrooms, I would say more or less the same. But the key difference is really in the foyer area, in the corridor, as well as the kitchen area. Then moving on to botany, smallest 3-bedroom is at 883 square feet. I would say bigger size, but you don't have the flexi, which I think you might as well get a flexi given the same size. So these are a few comparisons that you do have to know, because given the smaller size at Dairy Farm, at Botany, this is what we have at Narra Residences. Then we move on to 3-bedroom premium at 1001 square feet. This one really quite nice. So what you have is your dry and wet kitchen, and also come at the same time with your bomb shelter as well, which I think, let's say for a 4-room or a 5-room HDB upgrader, this one will actually be very, very comparable in size, because 4-room BTO are now also at the same size, about 1000 square feet. So definitely a very livable size. So if you ask me the difference between the 1001 square feet versus the 990 1012 square feet, the main difference is really in the foyer area. Whether you walk into a bit more space, the foyer, or you walk in and you immediately see your living and dining. The key difference is really in the foyer, which can give you a bit more privacy, because sometimes you open the door, you don't want the neighbors to look in directly to your living. Then you may want to opt to pay for the foyer area. But of course, because the difference is about 20-30 square feet, which can translate to 50-60k, so it also depends on how much is the jump you see. Because if let's say it's 60k, 100k more, I might as well go for a smaller size. I say for the premium, but yet at the same time I get the functionality, same livability as the other 3-bedroom premium without paying that price point. Then moving on to the 1023 square feet, also similar. The difference, the foyer area. Then we move on to the 3-bedroom plus study at 1152 and 1173 square feet. This one, right, really quite nice, because when you see the 1152 square feet, right, you realize the study is over here. Then you get a very, very massive master bedroom. You have your mini walk-in wardrobe here, you have your nice entrance to your master bath. But I would say this layout do offer a very good flexibility, because for this study, it comes through a window over here. Then your wardrobe at your master bedroom also comes through a window. This study you can potentially, you buy it as a 3+ study, you potentially can even reconfigure and sell as a 4-bedroom. It is possible. Why I say that is because for Narra Residences, the 4-bedroom compact is the exact same size. 1152 square feet. Again, your main difference is really on these two areas. One is the study plus a wardrobe, then the other one is a proper bedroom. But do take note, for the 4-bedroom compact, you cannot convert it to anything else, because you have a concrete wall over here. You cannot turn it to anything else that you may wish. But whereas for this one, right, you can potentially do up, let's say, a wall here. Then you do your wardrobe here, right? Then you can have your 4-bedroom over here, which I think is very sizable. So you buy a 3-bedroom, 3+ study, price tag, hopefully, and then you sell it at a 4-bedroom in the future. But of course, again, it depends on how much the developer price the units at. If let's say the developer price the 3-bedroom plus study at a much higher price point, then go for a 4-bedroom compact. But let's say, right, the 3+ study is cheaper, then of course you know my answer already. Then we move on to the 4-bedroom premium at 1378 square feet. Again, when you look at this area, right, Dairy Farm area, whether it's Skywoods, Forest Hill, or Dairy Farm Residences, when you search the 4-bedroom available listings, that really isn't many. At this current moment of filming, I just checked, there's only 2 4-bedroom units available for sale at Dairy Farm Residences, which is a very vast difference. 2 4-bedroom versus 50 over 2-bedroom listings. You can see the jump over here. But anyway, back here, right, 1378 square feet, extremely livable, because you have your landscape living and dining. You have the option to to craft out this study, but of course most of the time I see people, they don't craft it out. They just leave this space because the moment you walk in, you have this grand space that you walk into. I think it really feels very good. Then also at the same time, you have your junior master that is tucked away at the corner, which I feel this 4-bedroom premium for a multi-generational living or for just a family to stay, I think is really very comfortable because it ticks a lot of the boxes, but yet at the same time it's not too cramped. You don't have a portrait or like a skinny living and dining. You still have your landscape living and dining, junior master, your dry and wet kitchen tucked away at the corner as well. Then moving on to the 5-bedroom premium, which the supply is even lesser. At 1658 square feet, right? The planner for this development is also the same planner for 𝐩𝐫𝐞𝐯 Residences. If you look at 𝐩𝐫𝐞𝐯, right, the 5-bedroom profits is insane. Back then, when the developer chose to build such big size 5 bedrooms, people were saying, "Xiao big, then the quantum is so high, who will buy?" But end up, they're the ones who make the most profit. This is what they're doing over here at Narra Residences as well, creating very big 5 bedrooms given the limited supply. So I think this one, when it TOP, when it hits the resale market, right, families will definitely rush in. Because people who are buying the 5-bedroom units, right, they tend to not want to move too much. So a lot of times we see that these families, right, they either buy nearer to TOP or they wait until TOP when it's ready to move in, then that's when they buy such units. Which I feel if you have the budget, you have the free name, you have the free budget, and you don't mind buying this for potential profit or like capital appreciation, definitely this one is something to look out for. Because at 1006 square feet, depending on how much of a premium they load on the big units, then this one might be worth considering. It comes with a private lift over here. But the main difference between these two layouts, right, I flipped the layout again. For the first one, your private lift lobby opens up straight into your living and dining. Whereas for the other one, it opens up to here, then it comes into here. So that is quite a big difference. I would say given that you have 13 units each, right, my most preferred one would definitely be the second 5-bedroom, given the additional privacy that we have. Anyway, same size. But another key difference, right, is of course your orientation of the bomb shelter. But I would say the kitchen. The kitchen is a lot of difference because one, you have a single lane like that, an L-shaped kitchen, whereas the other one you do have both sides. Which I feel for cooking practicality, I would prefer the second one. For the private lift lobbies facing more privacy, as well as I would say the functionality of the kitchen, I think it's a bit more practical. But again, it depends on the take-up rate and if these units are even available at that point of time and at what price point, then this may be worth considering. So I'll just flash the indicative pricings released by the developer, but I would say these are just starting from prices, which means it could just be that one and only cheapest unit of the entire development at that price point. So you do have to manage your expectations. So I would say buffer a bit more so that you have a bit more choices, because if let's say you just take the starting from prices, right, then you are banking on the fact that you have a very good queue number and you buy that one cheapest unit. But whereas if you buffer a bit more budget, right, then you can have a bit more options, and also at the same time you are more prepared on the booking day itself, because you don't want to be jammed at the booking day while you see units taken up. Then you scramble and see whether, can I increase my budget? Can I potentially upgrade from a 2-bed 2-bath to a 2+ bomb shelter, or like even to a 3-bedroom compact? Can I do that? It is very nerve-wracking to do on the spot. So usually what I do with my clients is that we do have quite a few sessions running through the numbers, crunching the options, and if we don't get a good queue number and we don't get a choice unit here in this development, the question is also, are there other options available in the market? Because I feel sometimes for new launches, it's a lot driven by hype, a lot driven by FOMO. Then people forget about other projects or like other options. They forget to compare, they forget to analyze, and they just buy into hype. And then that could be missed opportunities. Whether you're looking at Narra Residences at Dairy Farm or you are potentially exploring other new launches in the coming year, feel free to reach out to me and I'll be more than happy to have a consultation with you. So that's all for my video. If you like what I shared today, please feel free to like, share and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you at the next one.